My name is Nick, and welcome to my channel, where I like to talk about scary stuff. St. Valentine's Day is upon us, what could be scarier? And I know this isn't everyone's favorite holiday, but I have a confession to make. I love Valentine's Day. I love it. I may be one of the most single people on earth, but I still love Valentine's Day because it's a holiday dedicated to celebrating love, and I love that. I also love holiday-themed horror movies, so you know I had to put together a top 10 list of my personal favorite Valentine's Day-themed horror films. Now again, this is my personal list. Just saying. Real quick, last year I made a video on the best romantic horror movies, and those work very well for Valentine's Day, so check that video out if you haven't already. I know this is a bit of an intro, so pardon me, but with all of the disclaimers down, let's get into the top 10 best Valentine's Day themed horror movies. I want to start with a bonus recommendation, The Strangers from 2008. Considered to be one of the scariest movies ever made by some, this home invasion horror movie is about a couple staying at a house in the middle of nowhere when a trio of crazies come knocking with knives in hand. I actually hate this movie, which I know sounds really harsh, but I'm just being honest. The reason I want to point this out is because I love the beginning part when Liv Tyler finds all of the rose petals on the bed and the way that the guy has set up the house after proposing to her. It's very Valentine's Day to me, and I'm here for a vibe, okay? That's what I'm looking for. It's slim pickings out there with Valentine's Day themed horror movies, so even though I think the rest of this movie is garbage, you could totally watch the first 20 minutes of this movie and then, you know, maybe turn on the sequel. Kicking off the official list at number 10 is Life After Beth. This romantic horror comedy from A24 is about a young man who is saddened to learn that his girlfriend, played by Aubrey Plaza, has recently passed away, but he's even further shocked to learn that she did not stay dead and she is back as a zombie. Will their love survive zombieism? Well, you'll have to watch to find out. And right now you can find Life After Beth on Pluto TV. This is such an underrated little gem that I rarely hear anyone talk about. It's very simple and silly, but it does a really good job of balancing the horror and the comedy in a way that really works well for me. It doesn't take place around Valentine's Day, but it makes it onto the list because it's basically a romantic comedy with horror elements. I mean, why don't we have more horror rom-coms? Can we make that a thing, please?
You don't want to eat me, do you?
Not right now.
No, I mean like really eat me.
Not with my parents around.
Okay. At number 9, we have Bride of Chucky, maybe the best entry in the Child's Play franchise. Chucky reunites with his long-lost love Tiffany, whose soul is also transferred into a doll, just in time for the pair to hitch a ride with a couple of teens in love, turning their road trip into one hell of a blood-soaked honeymoon. This one also doesn't take place on Valentine's Day, but my cheat is that Tiffany's last name is Valentine, which is perfect, and the whole movie is about relationships and marriages, and we have that great scene in the honeymoon suite. I mean, come on. If you've seen it, you know I don't have to convince you.
Barbie, eat your heart out.
Number 8 is Tales from the Crypt. This early 70s horror anthology follows a group of people who become stuck in a crypt and hear several tales of impending doom from the creepy crypt keeper. This film inspired the late 80s hit TV series that I still need to discover for myself personally, but while this is a low-key entry on the list, it's one of the few horror films I could find with any type of story taking place on Valentine's Day. Plus, it also features, I believe, the first on-screen killer Santa Claus in a segment with Joan Collins, so it's definitely worth watching at least once. Plus, you can find it right here on YouTube.
Who's next? Perhaps you?
Number 7 is Lover's Lane, a late 90s slasher taking inspiration from the infamous urban legend The Hook. A killer with a hook for a hand escapes incarceration 13 years after a bloody rampage on Valentine's Day. Now he's after a set of teenagers looking to party the night away on Lover's Lane. It's basically My Bloody Valentine trying to be Scream, and I'm totally into it. It's very low-budget, schlocky fun, but I like the way it takes a classic urban legend and infuses it with some holiday-themed horror. Lover's Lane stars Anna Faris as the typical blonde cheerleader type, just a year before she broke out in Scary Movie, and it also acts as essentially a late 90s time capsule. This movie is basically impossible to find online, which is a damn shame because it is screaming for an update from Shout Factory or Vinegar Syndrome. Please, one of those companies, get on it because I need a solid Blu-ray of this movie.
Did you hear something?
Oh, come on. Don't tell me that you're scared.
Number 6 is Down. Technically a TV movie, this is an installment in Hulu and Blumhouse's Into the Dark series and follows 2 employees who become trapped in an elevator the day before Valentine's Day. As things progress, it becomes clear one of them isn't who they say they are. I've been meaning to rank the Into the Dark episodes for the longest time, but I can pretty much just sum it up by saying Down is the best entry out of the bunch. It's basically P2, but on Valentine's Day and in an elevator, so if you've seen P2 and you're into it, Down is streaming exclusively on Hulu.
Looking forward to the long weekend.
Valentine's Day and President's Day? How often do you get that?
It's like the perfect storm, right?
Did we just stop?
Number 5 is X-Ray, also known as Hospital Massacre. And yes, it's time for another slasher movie. Yay! A woman goes to a hospital for a quick checkup only to find a man dressed up as a doctor on a murder spree. Could he be the same guy who killed a friend of hers on Valentine's Day 20 years earlier? Yes, of course, obviously. This is another schlocky little mess, but with the few Valentine's Day themed horror films out there, I have fun with it. I like the way this one utilizes the hospital setting and the Valentine's Day theme, plus it's basically the less interesting but also more interesting version of Unsane that came out like 35 years before Unsane, so if you're willing to check it out yourself, right now you can find X-Ray on Paramount+. Number 4 is Pontypool, maybe the most underrated movie on this list. This Canadian horror flick follows the small crew of a radio station who begin following a catastrophic event in their local area. They lock themselves inside as they fear an outside threat grows closer and closer. I'm saying very little about this one intentionally because I somehow managed to avoid spoilers for it for over a decade. I watched it like a month ago and I was totally blown away. If you can watch this movie blind, do it. It is so good. It's kind of a movie where nothing happens, but yet a lot happens, you know? It's an experience, it's a ride, you've got to see it for yourself. And you can find it right here on YouTube for free.
Roadblocks preventing people from leaving and entering the area.
Everybody is under quarantine.
We still do not have an official version of these events, and it's very difficult at this moment to get a fix on what has happened.
Number 3 is Picnic at Hanging Rock, and I feel like I have to immediately defend putting this on the list because I know a lot of people won't consider this to be horror, but it is. This Australian set film follows the true life events that unfolded on Valentine's Day in the year 1900. A group of schoolgirls and their teachers venture out to the landmark Hanging Rock for an afternoon picnic, only some were never to be seen again. That's all I want to say because this is another one that you should see as blind as possible. It's also another one that I took forever to get around to watching. I just have to say, like, I tried to watch this movie maybe 3 or 4 times. I don't know why, but sometimes there are movies, I know I've talked about this before, where like my brain just simply rejects it. It's like I'm watching and actively cannot remember a thing. Like I went to go watch this on HBO Max and it showed me that I had already watched it on the app before and I was like, when? But I'm glad I took the time to really sit and absorb this film because as it says on the poster, it's a recollection of evil, which I would describe as accurate because this is not the typical film that follows a typical narrative. It's more of a true crime film, like a case file put onto film, and I know true crime fans may really get a kick out of it, as I did, but others I know will find this long, slow, and boring. I know. I was initially planning on slapping this at number 10 and calling it a day, but it truly is worth the watch. Give this movie a chance because it is absolutely haunting, and I'm so glad to add it to the rotation of movies that I watch every year on Valentine's Day. Like I said, it's on HBO Max, but this is another one that you can find right here on YouTube.
We'll partake of luncheon at the picnic grounds near the rock. Once again, let me remind you, the rock itself is extremely dangerous. You are therefore forbidden any tomboy foolishness in the matter of exploration.
Number 2 is Valentine. Yes! Do you have any idea how ready I am to talk about Valentine? A group of women are stalked and terrorized by a killer wearing a Cupid mask who may just be some loser they bullied in middle school. If you're new here, you should know that I'm absolutely handcuffed to the late 90s slasher boom, and Valentine is basically the movie that capped off that craze, and it is like the perfect distillation of everything that makes those movies work for me. You have a fun group of female characters, including a saucy Denise Richards and a sympathetic final girl in Marley Shelton. You've got a creepy and creative killer, plus it uses the dating lives of women in their 20s as the basis for horror. I love it. Obviously, this is one of the most Valentine's-y Valentine's Day horror movies, so I watch it every year religiously. And if you want to check it out yourself, right now Valentine is streaming on Shudder.
Will you dance with me? Dance with me? Dance with me? Dance with me? Remember the kid everybody ignored on Valentine's Day? Loser. Well, he remembers you.
Number 1 is My Bloody Valentine from 1981. Without a doubt, there's no way this wasn't gonna be my number 1 pick. Residents of the small mining town of Valentine Bluffs are picked off one by a murderer in a miner's outfit years after a Valentine's Day massacre. Melodramatic Canadian soap opera plotlines play out, leading up to a bloodbath of a Valentine's Day party. Like Valentine, this is another movie that I 1000% genuinely love with all my heart. I'm honestly kind of falling in love with this top 10 as I'm talking about it. I'm just saying. Now, I know I'm always talking about 80s slashers, but this is truly maybe the best 80s slasher of them all. Like, it's definitely in my top 5. But if I were to recommend an 80s slasher to people who do not like 80s slashers, I would pick My Bloody Valentine. It's that damn good.
In this town on Valentine's Day, everybody loses their heart.
Roses are red, violets are blue. One is dead, and so are you.
Bonus time! Yes, you know I have to bring up another one of my favorites, the remake My Bloody Valentine 3D.
Prepare to witness.
What do you want?
The most frightening 3D motion picture event to tear through the screen.
10 years after a Valentine's Day massacre, a mining town once again deals with a murderer in a miner's outfit. But who's behind the mask this time? This is another movie that I love a fuck ton and want to watch all the time, not just around Valentine's Day. And I will address that I'm sure a lot of people hate this movie for the gratuitous nude scene alone, and I can totally get that. But this movie hits such a sweet spot for me specifically, in that it is a 2000s slasher that is basically mashing up 80s slasher and 90s slasher tropes into one perfect concoction that I can't get enough of. Oh no, we are not done yet. No, because I always have to throw out a bad movie recommendation. The Return of the Living Dead 3 has a pretty convoluted plot, so I'll simplify it by saying a teenager learns of a top secret government experiment that can bring the dead back to life, which comes in handy when his girlfriend is killed in a car wreck and he can't help but bring her back as a brain-craving zombie. If you want Life After Beth without the romantic comedy elements, well, here you go. This movie is not related to the other Return of the Living Dead movies, which I love, but it is still a silly and interesting good time. It doesn't get as crazy as I would like it to, but the ride-or-die relationship at the center of this movie makes it a perfect watch for Valentine's Day.
Now that she's dead, he's frightened to live without her, but bringing her back is terrifying.
Oh, God, Kurt, that was incredible. Let's do it again.
If you still need some more recommendations, well, don't worry, I've got you. Check out the description box where I will have my full list of recommendations, as well as some bad romance recommendations and breakup movie recommendations. And if you didn't check out my video on the best romantic horror movies, I'm gonna plug it again. That'll also be in the description box. Check that out. There are plenty of other good movies in that video that I wanted to keep separate, so just watch all of my content. Oh, also, 50 Shades of Grey. I mean, have you seen this movie? It's absolutely frightening. Thank you so much for watching this video. I greatly appreciate it as always, especially if you made it all the way to the end. You're the best. If you aren't already, subscribe to my channel, maybe give this video a like, share it with some friends if you would. You can follow me on Instagram and Letterboxd for more movie recommendations. That's it for this video, but I won't stop you from watching another. Happy Valentine's Day! Woo!